um, uh, you know, ill will where there is none. And that's a big problem. But I don't know whether you've heard of this Extinction Rebellion group.
I've heard of it, but I don't really know what it is. So like I've heard the name, but like that's about
So
it.
it's a left wing, far left wing. They're mostly communists. They're Marxists in disguise. And James Delingpole wrote a good book called Watermelons, which basically is about this whole climate change activist mentality, where you're green on the outside because you purport to want to help, the environment, but you're red on the inside like a watermelon because you're a communist, and it's so true. So this Extinction Rebellion group for a couple of years now have been protesting in London and various other places in Manchester where I live, blocking people from going to work, coming back to work. And there was one the other day. What day are we on now? Saturday. I think it was on Thursday morning. There was a guy who jumped on top of the tube train in London at like 8 a.m. in the morning, people trying to get to work. So that train couldn't set off. A couple of them jumped on the tube train, and a bunch of them grabbed the guy, pull him off, and beat the shit out of him, saying like, fuck you. Like, this is an electric vehicle. If you're gonna tell us that you're gonna make us late for work because of your politics, we're not gonna take it anymore. So the working class are kind of revolting at this. It's happened in Australia too. People are getting sick of it in Australia. But it's basically, look at me, I care about the planet, I'm good, therefore you shouldn't go to work, or I'm gonna make you late for work. But that's a good thing, because at least you know who we are now. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way. You're not going to persuade anyone to your side by making their lives harder than they already are. So I think they've got it wrong completely. And they're called Extinction Rebellion. I want them to go extinct, quite frankly.
Is that the same? Because I've watched a couple of your video. I've watched a couple of your videos now. So is Extinction Rebellion, is that the same group that was like that was like
with the
spray
hose
painting?
pipe?
Yeah, that was like
The
hosing.
Treasury building. Yeah.
Yeah, so
that would be the equivalent of the Federal Reserve. They
yeah,
went there. They bought a fire truck, right, which is a diesel engine fire truck, drove it through the centre of London. So how much CO2 has that fucker pumped out? To make a point about CO2 emissions, and spray the Federal Reserve, essentially the Treasury building, with fake blood to make a message. And it's like, well, you could have walked, but then you wouldn't have had the hose. But they didn't have the hose for very long anyway. It took like 5 seconds before the guy dropped the thing because the pressure was too high or whatever, and they didn't know what they were doing. It's a complete joke. They're a joke. They've proven themselves time and time again to be a group of absolute imbeciles. And people sort of waking up, people who weren't really political are starting to go, these guys suck. These guys are wasting everybody's time. They've made me late to work twice. They've cost us X amount of money in police time, investigations. Who the fuck has to clean that fake blood off the street and off the federal building? That's got to come out of taxpayer money somehow. So they're really not doing a great job. But if you oppose them, then you're a fascist. So I guess I'm a fascist. Okay, fine. If that's what you want to call.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing here with with Antifa here too. I don't know. I don't know if does Antifa have chapters in Great Britain yet?
Yes,
Oh,
so,
fuck. Yeah,
so if you've seen my channel, the intro video that I do, I went to a anti-Trump march in Manchester just to ask some people some questions. And you've got that communist, everyone was a communist there. There was a pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, pro-jihad group there, and all kinds of stuff. And there was a lone kid who was, I think he was 13. I went up to him because he had a big Antifa flag and an Antifa shirt on, dyed blue hair. He was just stood there by himself, not saying anything, just stood there. And I thought, well, good on you for coming out at that age and whatever you believe in. I respect that. So I asked him a few questions, and I was like, you do realize that Antifa are now being considered a domestic terror group in the United States? And they've done this, they've done that. They call themselves anti-fascist, and they want to shut down people's liberties and free speech. And you're really the fascist ones. And he just goes, and I went, okay, buddy, I'm not going to bother you too much. You're only 13, but 13. I was retarded at 16. Socialist, Bernie Sanders fan. I had 3 years experience on him. I was a complete dunce, a complete retard politically. But 13? Why the fuck do you give a shit about politics? Who's done this to you? And it's the schools. It's the schools, and it's the education system going left wing, left wing, left wing, left wing. Bullshit, Marxism. Like, political correctness. You're a straight white man. You need to repent. You need to apologize. And his way of doing that was holding a little Antifa sign going, I don't like hate. None of us like hate, you gimp.
Yeah, well, and then the fact that I was like listening to Rush Limbaugh at 16, like, you know, that
it's pretty
like
based.
that,
I wasn't.
Well, but see, it's funny because that was like a cause of, you know, concern for some, you know, people that, you know, like, you know,
Sam's listening to Rush Limbaugh. Ooh, keep an eye on Sam. Oof, he might be a school shooter in a few years. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Well, like, I mean, I started listening to Gavin, you know, when I was in college. That was kind of when he became bigger, and that was the other thing over here was like I was